Hello Blackhawks, Colonel Morgado here. Again, this is our second installment within our Leader Professional Development program and our second podcast. So I know in our first installment we covered recruiting and marketing as a little understood process, and hopefully through the LPD events that we'll have, we'll get some clarification on that. The second issue that I've found that we struggle with at times as leaders, and this has been endemic within the Army, at least within my career, regardless of rank, duty assignment, whether it be operational or institutional, is the idea of risk management. Right, risk management. A lot of leaders struggle with that in terms of, okay, got it, I'll fill out the deliberate risk assessment worksheet, and that's the end of their understanding of what risk management is really about. So, and another thing that we frequently run into within Cadet Command is this idea of, hey, we must control for everything that goes on and assume no risk within the education and training and development of our cadets. So what I'd like to do with you today is provide you at least an example or a means to conceptualize the idea of risk assessment and risk management and what it means to you and how we can do better at it. So if you think about what risk management is really all about, right, it goes down to the fact that our business within the Army is inherently dangerous, right? Many of the things that we do incur a high level of risk. However, it's mission first, people always. So our constant challenge is how do we accomplish the mission while preserving our force? And so then how we look at risk and how the Army asks us to look at risk is looking at the probability of an event occurring, right? And then the severity of that. If something were to pass, what is severity to the force and how do we measure that, right? So then obviously if it's high probability and high severity, meaning people, the likelihood that is high that they're going to get hurt, and if something does go bad, they're going to get hurt real bad, is obviously a bad thing, right? So this becomes a high risk type of operation. Then our goal as Army leaders is how do I reduce the probability of an event occurring, and if it does occur, how do I reduce the severity so it does not completely eliminate my force or render my force incapable of conducting follow-on missions. So that is essentially this thinking of probability and severity is at the heart of what we do when we conduct risk management. The problem that I've seen that many of our leaders have, and this would be me included, would be how do we visualize what exactly probability and severity looks like, right? Because when we sit down in front of our computers with a blinking cursor and we're filling out our deliver risk assessment worksheet, is the idea of safety and operations can be a detached thing, and we have a hard time visualizing the operation that we're about to conduct and thinking of things in probability and severity. So it was quite a while ago, I think I was probably a senior captain, one of my mentors gave a very interesting description, and so this description has stayed with me. I'm going to share it with you, and hopefully that this will encourage some discussion. He said that we have to think about things as a series or chain of events. He called this the top line, the lifeline, and he called this line here the death line, right? And so we'll have a start point here for any given operation. And so our idea is to keep our folks on the line of life, right? We need to preserve our combat power. But the Grim Reaper is always looking for opportunities to come down and strike us when we least expect it, or when we don't think about the risk that we're going on and how do we put the right controls in place. So the example I like to use today, and I've used this in a couple different venues with our cadets at CST, is let's think about, put yourself in the shoes of a brand new second lieutenant, right? Or a lieutenant just been in that unit for a while. And your company commander comes down and says, LT, Lieutenant Morgado, your mission is to take a 5-ton truck, put some critical supplies on the back of it that's needed out at a gunnery range, and you need to get it out there this afternoon. So you see your mission, you salute your commander, and you move out. So as a young lieutenant, what's likely the first thing that you're going to do? As a young first lieutenant, or as a young lieutenant, the first thing I'd probably do is call my platoon sergeant, right? And I would give the platoon sergeant those instructions or something close to it. And then what might the platoon sergeant do, right? He's calling a squad leader, right? And then what might the squad leader do? he assigned that task probably to a Sharp E5 and a PFC to get that job done, right? A one truck mission, right? And the task, everything's been delegated, and the mission, right? For most folks, right? Well, that's probably the path that we don't want to be on. Here, just using that mission as an example, here are probably some things that might go wrong, right? Or some things that might go right in the conduct of that mission, and here's a way that we can conceptualize it. So, here we have, right? We have a 5-ton truck mission. Right? Sergeant E5, private, get on board, they hop in the truck, right? They fire it up, and they're rolling out the motor pool gate. What are some questions that occur to you, and probably maybe some things that they didn't do? Did they PMCS that truck? I don't know, we don't know, right? But based on my scenario, let's say they have not. E5 and a PFC have just gotten into a truck before ops, preventive maintenance checks and services, right? And by doing that, we've probably just taken our first step towards death. If they miss something critical like, oh, let's assume this 5-ton truck has a ruptured brake line. We have just taken our first step. So, start moving out of the motor pool. It just happens that neither the Sergeant E5 or the PFC have put on their seatbelt. Is this our next step towards death? It sure is, potentially, right? So, this one here was no PMCS. The next one is no seatbelt. So they're going down the road. Another fact that might not be apparent to us is that PFC that's driving the truck, he's licensed on an M1078, a 2.5-ton truck, but not licensed on a 5-ton truck. What's just happened? We've just taken our next step towards death. So they're moving down the road, right? It now starts to rain, right? So what's just happened? We departed the motor pool on clear and dry conditions. Rain has come upon us, right? So in a change in road conditions presents a new danger, and if you look at that this individual has no license, a change in weather conditions might be our next step towards death. Driver is moving along, right? Understands he's new and unfamiliar with the vehicle. Maybe perhaps we're rolling downhill, accelerating speed, right? And hits a sharp turn that he wasn't accustomed to. And by driving at an improper speed, he cannot successfully negotiate that critical turn, and we've just taken our next step towards death. When he doesn't take that turn at the proper speed, plunges off the road, they're not wearing seat belts, because remember we had taken that step earlier. What we finally have are a damaged vehicle and 2 dead soldiers, right? So using that example as a visualization tool of any operation as we flow through, some things to consider. So in my example, in a room full of cadets, is I asked them, what is the single greatest determinant, right, that will prevent all this from happening and help us turn it around? And the answer is leadership, right? And understanding that, where does a leader need to be, or what does a leader need to do to ensure that we're not taking these incremental steps towards death. And so a lot of reaction from the cadets is, you know, I asked them what they might do as a lieutenant, and it ranges from, you know, the LT is checking license, the LT is checking seatbelts, the LT is present at the dispatching of the vehicle. It goes on, and it quickly becomes apparent to them that, hey, you know, a leader on a 2-person mission with a truck, you know, being a platoon leader, you know, it's not necessarily them that has to be at all these critical junctures to make it happen. However, as a leader, we're responsible to engaging our entire formation in ensuring that these things don't happen. Those are controls, right? That's how we get at creating an environment where we're not taking these incremental steps. And the thing that's most important to understand is that a safety issue or an accident or taking an undue amount of risk in this, you know, probability and severity realm, the idea is it's not a single event. It's not the truck went through a turn at high speed and crashed and 2 people died, there were a series of events that anywhere along this line, if we had the right leader in place or the right control in place, we're not taking any steps towards death anymore, but we're taking a step towards life. So as we sit down and do our deliberate risk assessments and worksheets, we have to understand that we are an inherently dangerous mission, an inherently dangerous task. So our charge, though, is that we still have to accomplish the mission, right? So how do we place the right controls and think about how we check or verify that those controls are in place while still accomplishing the mission in an efficient and effective way? So going back to one of the things I originally said is that perhaps at Cadet Command we have a different conceptualization of what the right amount of risk is, right? That we have to bubble wrap all our cadets and send them on their way. That's not what we want to do, and that's certainly not a way to help educate the future Army officers that are going to have to do this about what risk management, okay, and risk assessments are really all about. It's about how do I understand what the mission that has to be done, how do we get from point A to point B, visualize, war game the ways or other factors that could involve us or impede us from accomplishing that mission, and then ensuring that those controls that I've put into place are effective. So hopefully my death line here and my pathway to death has been a way to help you understand what risk management and risk assessments are really all about, and I look forward to our discussion on the topic. So thank you.